If you ever watched Abbott Elementary and thought Janine is literally me, you're probably dealing with imposter syndrome and you don't even know it. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Dr. J. I'm a professor. I'm a lot of different things, all right? But what I really do is I just study imposter syndrome. One of the reasons why I study imposter syndrome is because I deal with it daily. So if you heard about that term, please stick for this video because we really about to dive in on Janine Teagues. Do y'all know who Janine is? Janine, she's a walking, talking case study of how good teachers make themselves miserable. She's talented. She cares about her kids. She's passionate. She's absolutely exhausted. And it's crazy because she's a great teacher, right? Janine, just like a lot of you watching this, some of y'all might be in the education space, is stuck in 3 patterns that make imposter syndrome worse every single day. And by the end of this video, you're going to spot exactly what you're doing. So let's break it down. So for anybody that hasn't watched Abbott Elementary, first off, you need to go watch it. It's actually pretty funny. But we're just going to be talking about one of the characters in the show. It's a variety of different characters in the show, but we're going to talk about the main character who everything's around, Janine. So Janine is a teacher. She's second, third year now going on, depending on where you caught in, but she's a teacher. She's in Philadelphia and she's at an underfunded school. Some people might call it Title I, but she's optimistic, right? She got everything in there, right? She is hardworking. She loves teaching. She loves her students. But here's the thing about Janine. Janine is constantly feels like she's not good enough at anything that she does. That's what we find out in her relationships as the show goes on. But in this case, we just talking about she's not a good teacher. Right? She's not good at her career path that she has chosen. She's not as respected as some of the older teachers that's there at the school that she's at. Does this sound familiar to anybody? All right, if so, let me know in the comments. But if you're a teacher, you probably see yourself as Janine. The late nights, the bulletin boards that nobody asked for, the constant apologizing. What? That's not dedication, that's imposter syndrome. And it shows up in 3 ways. And we're going to talk about these 3 ways here. The first way, I call this overwork. So just focusing on Janine, right? Remember when Janine stayed late to redo her entire classroom? Or even when she volunteered for the garden project that really nobody asked for? Or really you could really pick out an episode and she might be fitting this first pattern, right? Where she's the first one there and then she's the last one to leave. That's not just being a good teacher, that's imposter syndrome talking, right? And in Janine's brain, she is saying, if I work hard enough, maybe I'll finally deserve to be here. I might just deserve to be here. So here's a connection that you might see. If you're watching this thinking, well, that's what good teachers do, right? Stop it. If you're staying up until 2 a.m. making Pinterest perfect lesson plans, or if you're working through lunch because you feel guilty about taking a break, even if you're redoing things that you was already kind of good beforehand, right? You're not being a better teacher. You're you're basically feeding this fraud feeling. That's what you're really doing, right? And look, I did the same thing. I do the same thing now. I'm a professor. I'm teaching right now. And look, I did this everywhere. When I was first teaching, I used to spend many hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. I made all my slides. I was prepping for the lecture. I went over it 3-4 times in my head. Then I would practice it all before the first day, before I have to go on and speak in front of the students. I thought someone would expose me as a fraud if I wasn't that much prepared. I was tired. I would literally feel mentally drained even before teaching, right? I was burning myself out. And the crazy thing is that my students didn't know when I had prepared for 3 hours versus when I literally just got out the parking lot, spent 10 minutes preparing it and came in. They had no idea. And here's the trap is because when you overwork, you're training your brain to believe that your success comes from effort, not ability. So every time something goes well, you think, I only succeeded because I worked myself to death, right? Not because you're actually good at what you do. You set typically impossible standards and you burn out, and then you take a break You feel like you're slipping, and then a cycle just continues and repeats itself. This is the overworking that we're talking about. So, what should you do instead? Let's just set a time boundary, right? Not perfection boundaries, but a time boundary. Ask yourself, what is good enough for my students to learn? Like in this case, that's what I would tell Janine. What's good enough for them to learn, right? Not what's good enough for me to feel less anxious about. Those are two different questions that you're asking yourself. Here's the second one. The second pattern is that you hide. So let's talk about Janine again. Janine has great ideas. Every idea is awesome. But watch how often she downplays them. She apologizes before she even talks to anybody. She waits for Barbara to say what she's already thinking, or she volunteers her opinions with, this might be stupid, but she's downplaying herself even before she gave her idea. You do this too, don't you? It's okay, right? We always done it in some type of way. You could be in a meeting, right? You have the answer to the solution, right? To the problem that they need you to solve. You have the answer. You feel it deep inside. You know when you feel like you know what you got to say, and then it starts egging on you, but then you stay quiet the entire meeting, and then you let somebody else talk. Somebody gives some dumb idea, then you still got it deep down like, oh, I know this is what they need, but I'm not saying it, right? But you stay quiet to yourself because you think if I'm wrong, everybody will know I don't belong here. They're going to think, why are you even talking, right? You need to stay over there in the corner. New girl, right? So you apologize before sharing any idea. You say, sorry, but this is probably dumb. You're downplaying yourself already. Or you let the older teachers, the more veteran teachers speak, and then you stay invisible. For many times, just speaking about me, there was many times I remember in school, graduate school, where we were in these team meetings. I'm with some of my older colleagues, as well as we would have meetings with some industry people too. And then I stayed quiet, right, when it came to certain things. Even when I transitioned to teaching and then being in faculty meetings, there was times in my older institutions where I did not talk the entire time, because I was just trying to observe, of course. And maybe me saying I was observing, I was really hiding, right? I had many ideas that I wanted to say, but I just wasn't sure, right? Because I was new. I was new in the role. At that time, I was actually one of the youngest people in the room. I thought, who am I to speak up, right? When I'm comparing myself, comparisons to Thief of Joy, but I'm comparing myself to people that's been in the game for 30 years. Dude been teaching for 30 years. What am I, right? So I didn't, and you know what? Someone else eventually said what I was thinking sometimes, and then they got the credit. There's also been other times, and this is another thing that is terrible, is that some people never say the ideas because it's your ideas and they don't think like you. And then the problem never gets solved, which is a whole nother issue. That when you hide, you become invisible. When you're invisible, you don't get opportunities. And when you don't get opportunities, you think, see, I don't belong here. And that cycle continues on and on, especially for Black people. Black teachers, you know what I'm saying? Let me just point it out, man, especially to the Black people. We are already fighting to be heard in a lot of spaces. When we say silent, we're making ourselves disappear completely. So what you should probably do instead is that you just need to start small, right? Share one idea at least per meeting. You don't have to do a 30-minute monologue or anything like that about the idea. Just share one idea. Don't apologize for what you got to say. Stop apologizing. And then just realize that your perspective has value because you got we all come from different backgrounds. So we all got different perspectives, and then we all have value towards the organizations that we are in. Even if you're new, even if you're young, even if you're different from everybody else. Okay. Confidence doesn't come before you speak up. You need to realize that confidence does not come before you speak up. It comes from speaking up, right? That's where confidence comes from, the action and doing, okay? Then the last one, I want to get to this one. The last one, this is the third pattern, right? You compare. So once again, talking about Janine, right? This is a big one. Janine is constantly measuring herself against Barbara. She's measuring herself against anybody, really. But I'm just going to talk about Barbara, all right? So you don't know about Abbott Elementary. Barbara is a veteran teacher, standard, the golden child, right? She's been there for 20 years plus. Her classroom, if you go in there, is calm. Barbara has systems in place. Barbara makes it look easy. And Janine is over here thinking, I'll never be that good. I don't know how she does it. But here's what Janine constantly forgets, y'all. This is what she forgets. Barbara was also a first year teacher at one point in time. She started at day one, just like Janine. Barbara was also struggling. Barbara also had chaotic classrooms and bad days and moments where she questioned if she was cut out for this, right? The thing about it though is that Janine comparing her chapter 1 to Barbara's chapter 20 is not fair. That math don't make sense. It's connected, right? When you scroll Instagram, TikTok, you see teachers with perfect classrooms and color-coded everything. You look at TikTok, right, and someone's doing some viral lesson that 2 million people have looked at, do the same thing, you get 100 views, right? But you look at the teacher next door and they seem calm and organized and like they got it all figured out. And you think, why can't I be like that, right? Why can't that be me? Why can't that be me? Why can't that be me? Here's why, right? You're comparing your reality to their highlight reel when it comes to those social media stuff, right? You're measuring yourself with someone else's ruler. You know what I'm saying? You're ignoring, right, your unique strengths because you're too busy wishing that you were somewhere else. See, research shows that comparison kills job satisfaction. It's a rigged game when you start to compare yourself. So what you need to do is that compare yourself to you. Just like what Money Bag say, right? He said it's me versus me. That's how we have to think, right? You compare yourself to you a year ago. You compare yourself to you a week ago. That's the only fair comparison that you can do. And then ask yourself, am I better than last year? If not, right, then okay, we figure out how we're going to make it better. Am I as good as someone with 15 years of experience? You cannot compare yourself to somebody who has 15 years of experience. And you know, yeah, I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. So here's what's happening. These three reactions, overwork, hide, and compare, they all feed each other. So let me talk about this real fast, a little science time real fast, because you know, the discipline I'm in, y'all, is chemistry. That's my background. But just like with chemistry, right, you can't compare oxygen to carbon in some ways, right? There are two different elements. They're different properties. There's different purposes that you use them for. You can't really compare them. You can't rate them, right? They serve different functions. That's the same thing with when you're comparing yourself to the other teacher, your other colleague, right? Your energy is your strength. And their thing is their thing, right? Your approach is your strength. Their approach is their strength, right? You cannot compare. It's apples to oranges. Stop comparing. And with these three things, overworking, hiding, and comparing, they all feed each other, right? Janine overworks. Then she burns out. Then she compares herself to other teachers who seem to do it effortlessly. She feels inadequate, right? Hides her value. And then she works even harder to compensate, and then she repeats it all over again. That is imposter syndrome. That is the cycle that we see with imposter syndrome, unfortunately. And if you're watching Abbott Elementary going, that's literally me, you're in it. You're in the cycle and you don't even know it. Now you do. But here's the good news. Janine grows throughout the show and she starts setting boundaries. She speaks up more now. She starts being the Barbara mini me, right? And starts being the Janine, the real me, you know, and you could do the same thing. You can truly do the same thing. So which one are you going to do, right? What are you about to do? Are you overworking like Janine, right? Are you hiding like Janine? Right? Or are you even comparing yourself to Barbara, just like Janine, right? Be honest. Most of us do all of these. I have done all three of these before. So if you have, please drop in the comments. Let's see what we're thinking and how we can get through this. And if you're dealing with this, just understand that you are not alone. Everybody struggles with this.